To kick things off, I'm very glad to welcome to the stage Phil Knowles from Amazon Games.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Volume okay? Maybe too loud? No, it's okay. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for attending. Thank you to RGA for having me. It's been a great weekend and a couple of days in Bucharest. It's an amazing city, really cool to be here, and love meeting the Amazon Games Bucharest studio. It's really exciting times for us, and I'm really looking forward to see what you guys do for Amazon Games moving forward. So let's get going. My name is Phil Knowles. I'm the co-dev and outsource lead for Amazon Games. And today I'm going to talk about healthy engagement and how at Amazon Games we assess, monitor, improve the health of our engagements and our business relationships. The first part of this talk is going to be a lot about business practices. Fairly foundational if you do a lot of biz dev. It's kind of the things that all of us try to continue to do to make sure that we're having healthy business relationships. And the second part, we'll get into a little bit of more on the processes, some of the processes that we use. So in this presentation, I'll provide a brief introduction to myself. I'll share why I believe focusing on health leads to successful outcomes. We'll dive into building the foundation of health before you actually go into business and start doing business together. I'll talk about how we evaluate and improve health over the course of a project, the processes and practices we use, what I believe the lasting pillars of health, and we'll end with a little time for Q&A, hopefully. So first, I'd like to talk about my role at Amazon Games and external development at Amazon Games, and give you a little bit of a, if you're not familiar with some of the terms we use, you know, there's full development, outsource, co-dev. Those are all terms that are essentially underneath an umbrella of external development. It's internal teams working with an external studio. You know, outsourcing is generally considered, I'm sending stuff out, they're sending stuff back. Co-dev, you're integrated into the engine and the team. Full dev is we're giving you a whole IP to work on or a whole port or something like that. So at Amazon Games, we don't have, like some big companies, a centralized external development or co-dev and outsourcing team where everything flows through the team. Amazon's very much product up. Everything's run sort of like a startup. We have the day one or day two sort of moniker that we use. So product teams own their budgets, they own their planning, they own their decisions. And what I do at Amazon Games is I provide support to those teams in any way that they need it. Now that might involve, in some cases, providing direct project management. And because a team is just starting out or they're small and they don't have anybody to dedicate to the role. Sometimes I'm mentoring people on the team that haven't done it before. And I do a lot of the pre-business sort of B2B meetings, a lot of the vetting and referring of studios. We build some processes and tools to support the whole org. And one of the other things that I do is I evaluate and help teams assess and report on the health of their engagements. So the importance of health. In this section, I'm going to talk, these first few sections, I'm going to talk about why I think health is a really great rallying point for internal and external teams to kind of focus their attention on what's important about making sure that they're always improving and having and working towards a successful outcome. So the terms health and engagement, I use the term health because it's really easily relatable, right? We can all understand what health means. We work on it on our own personal health, our physical, mental, relationship health, and we can think about the things that we do to improve in those areas, and a lot of those actions that we take can be translated into our business relationships as well. So healthy actions like honesty, transparency, dedication, perseverance, those are the kind of things that you're doing in your business relationships. The term engagement has a couple of meanings. For procurement, finance, legal. It really, for them, it starts at the signing of a contract through the purchase order, completion of the purchase order, final payment of invoices. But in the context of our business, it starts with that initial conversation, and it can go through your whole career because you might do work multiple times over the course of many years on different companies, different projects. So it's not just the health of any given little project, it's the health of the whole business relationship. So health in the context of our business. My friend Dave Sanderson, who does essentially a similar thing that I do, had this great quote: "Successful engagements are not built on the absence of mistakes, they're built on the presence of trust." So building that trust, building that relationship, you need to have a healthy relationship. And that health requires honesty, transparency, and trust. It must be valued and worked on constantly, so you have to be very diligent about it. And you'll see when I get into the process that we use and how we do it, it's very much about constantly assessing if things are healthy. You can't just put things in place and trust that they're going to work through the whole thing. And healthy actions, if you have healthy actions, you're doing healthy practices, you will lead to long-term relationships and trust. And that's the thing I've found over 35 years of doing this, is that it's the way you make sure that things are constantly as optimal and efficient and effective as they can be, and making any adjustments you need to make that are going to lead to working with the same people over and over and over again. And that's what we're all trying to accomplish, is just really good long-term relationships. So before we get into making projects healthy, let's look at what makes them unhealthy. So I don't know how many people here, do outsourcing or services, but this is some of the things we've found that you kind of have to keep an eye out for, and we're trying to avoid. Oftentimes there's a lack of escalation on a project, and it can be for a number of reasons. Sometimes people are just not confident in what they think they're seeing. They may just kind of hope the problem goes away. There can be barriers to openness and honesty about what's going on. It could be cultural or language, but it could also be people just aren't equipped to have like tough conversations like that, right? So I see this kind of stuff a lot with when like junior producers are asked to drive an outsourcing engagement or an external development engagement. It's just not necessarily part of their skill set. The other thing that I see a fair amount is people are like not really willing to acknowledge their own responsibility in an issue. Understandable, but you have to pull that out. So what doesn't happen a lot on teams is they don't have the idea that they need to be able to step back from the day-to-day. And so this is what this process that I'm going to describe does. It gets teams to step back from the delivery, the feedback, the direction, how things are tracking, and just look at the business engagement from a relationship and from a workflow and from a collaboration standpoint. Teams don't put in checkpoints necessarily to do that. So what I try and talk to our teams a lot about is put these checkpoints and put them in as milestones. You can actually even put them in as, payment and gates for payment. But if you put them into the milestones or the schedule as a recurring process, then it gets very comfortable for the teams to be very open and honest about what's going on. The wrong data. What I've found, this is sort of, I've had arguments with people about this, but a lot of people rely on KPIs. They'll rely on velocity, burn down rates, things like that, which are great and you need them. And I ask for them from teams, but those will show you that you have a problem. It doesn't necessarily get you ahead of the problem. So sometimes people get too focused on what I think is the wrong data, and I'll get more into that. So in this section, I'll talk about business practices I use to try and create healthy starts to relationships before we actually go into business together. So what's really important? These are the things I've found important from the initial conversation. I'm trying to do very rigorous vetting on the studio, and that doesn't mean necessarily, what's your business plan look like or anything like that. What I'm trying to do is ask the questions that my team is going to ask when I say, like, I think these people are good. They're going to ask questions about, like, why do you think they're good? And if they were interviewing, they're going to ask questions. So whether they're an effects lead, an engineer, part of the player support group, I'm trying to find out from your studio as much as possible what I can go back to the teams and tell them so that they can feel confident to at least get on a call with you. I'm also trying to find the right fit, and what I'm trying not to do is put any of our partners in a position to fail. So I have to think about, lots of times I'm asking companies out, well, if I could give you any project, what would you be very comfortable that you could knock out of the park, right? There's probably some of you here, if you've been to meetings, I've asked you this question, you guys over here. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that you're gonna be successful, right? Because I've certainly been involved in projects where very early on it seems like this is not going to go in a good direction. And it's because either the internal team or the external team is just not really capable of pulling off what they thought they could. And it's, I'll get more into some of the things we need to watch out for on that. I need to be very honest about the opportunities. So at Amazon Games, we've got a ton going on, but it doesn't do any of the vendors that I meet with a service to tell them that, oh yeah, I'm gonna have work for you for sure, 100%. We're gonna be doing work together. So unfortunately, this leads to, because we all do this, is I don't know when things necessarily we're gonna need them. We can start building a relationship and talking about the studio, but it's going to take some time, and I need to be very honest about that. Staying up to date, how do we stay up to date? It's a tricky thing, staying up to date and valuing that pre-business time. How do you keep people like me informed that are getting 20 plus reach outs a week without being pushy? Usually what we sort of tell people like me, and I've talked to other people about that, is like updates to your studio, updates to, if you've grown a whole bunch, or you now have some work that you can share that you weren't able to share before, you've added a service line, a studio, a new location. Those are good things to update on. Just pinging and saying, like, hey, do you have any business? Or, hey, we have a team coming available. I'm probably not going to respond to that. And frankly, for people like me, 80% of the reach outs I get on LinkedIn, and I'm just not able to handle that. So that's just something you have to kind of take in and try and figure out if you're a business development person. How do I keep people informed without being pushy? So how do we get to that healthy start and make sure that we have a healthy start? It's very important to have if you're doing biz dev, to actually have a deep understanding of your team, the project, and the external partner. Sometimes I meet biz dev people and it's a little bit obvious that they maybe don't understand their studio real well, or they don't understand the tech that you're trying to build, or those kind of things. And as much as possible, if I'm trying to find the right fit and trying to be a matchmaker, I really need to understand what we're trying to accomplish and what a successful outcome would look like. Like, what does that look like? So I can be the matchmaker, and I need to be the guide. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and people in the industry do more and more external development all the time. And so some people have a lot of experience in it. But what I found oftentimes is a lot of it gets passed down to junior people and they don't have experience in it. Or your organization on the inside or on the external side, it's complicated to get to that start date. We see this at Amazon Games. The process of onboarding and getting through contracts, it's difficult. So I need to be that sort of guide to get them to the start. And then I always say start small and scale and establish a really solid path to that start date. So how do we evaluate, maintain, and improve health during the project? First thing, really be very definitive and remove any ambiguity around workflow and responsibilities. I've seen a lot of projects and people start things where it's really not clear who's got the yes or no, and who's going to be taking care of grooming the backlog or tracking tasks or any of that stuff, and how the team's actually just going to work together on a day-to-day basis. That has to be very clearly defined and very, everybody agrees and understands what that looks like right from the start. It's super important. Set up the meetings and the communication. I like to get business reports from both sides so that they are providing data, KPIs, how tasks are tracking, if they're hitting estimates, all that kind of information from both sides is very good, and you kind of need it to back up what you're seeing, because I try to rely a little bit more on observation, but then we go check that data. You put in those checkpoints, be ready for change. There's always changes that happen. Sometimes, as long as you're sort of aware that maybe, okay, it's starting to look like we're going to be, maybe an internal team is going to get asked to provide a demo at some point that they didn't expect, or a portion of the game design has changed. The reason you want to look at health and kind of step back from day to day all the time on a recurring basis is because this stuff happens, right? And you just have to adjust to it. It's nobody's fault. It's just the nature of the business. So kind of stay ahead of that change and then build a plan towards sort of how you get through that and have long-term relationships and engagements. So these, the healthy engagement meetings, this is sort of the crux of the process that we use to try and keep things on track and improve them over time. So in these meetings, there's the goal of the meeting, if you need to make clear. The goal is not, it's not a retrospective, it's not to call anybody out, it's to identify anything that can be improved and tweaked moving forward. That's the complete and total goal. That's because that's what you need, to end up at the end and be successful. So to do that, you have to be super honest and transparent, and you have to have the right people in the meeting. If the whole team, all the individual contributors are in there, it gets a little bit tough to be super honest and transparent about what's going on, right? So this is really for managers and leads and the producers, because you're going to drill down into what's going on the performance and the fit. And I'll show you the forms that we use and explain how we do that. It's focused on the future. We come out with action items, and we run the meeting very focused and concise. In a perfect world, you get to where you're doing these on a monthly basis, but they may only be 15 to 20 minutes. Usually they're not. They usually last half hour to an hour. And I will say that I don't think I've ever done this without having multiple action items come out. A bit about measuring and reporting on health. So measuring health, like velocity, burn down rate, those kind of thing, that data is useful, but it's more important to measure how teams are working together. I don't rate, I don't like rating systems because it's almost impossible to get everybody to have the same, I did that, have the same understanding of what a number is, or a set of stars. Like what's 8 to you might not be 8 to me. And so I just find it more confusing and harder to define than it's worth. I'd rather track what we're seeing, what we're improving, what we implement to make improvements, because that's what's important. When I get to the end of an engagement, what I'm looking back at is where did we start and what did we implement along the way to make improvements and get to where we are at the end, which is hopefully a really successful thing. And then I document those, and it's important to keep those because you're going to need to look back at them the next time you want to work with that company or the next time the team wants to do something. And then broadcasting those out. I always, sometimes it seems like when you're a manager, producer, you're broadcasting out stuff, people aren't reading it. It doesn't matter. You still need to broadcast it out, have the data out there for people, have the assessment out for people. That's the product team, the stakeholders, the leadership group. And that way, it's just sort of part of your muscle memory. You're just doing it, and if anything is, if they are interested in anything, they can look at it and dive down into it. So these are the templates that I use, and I've seen a lot of different ones that people use, and the crux of these is the series of questions we ask. There's a little bit of the one on the left is the one that we send to the internal and the external team. And there's a little bit of project management or data on there. Got it? So, because what happens is sometimes you might be working with a vendor and they're working across several different things. They might have some artists working on something, there might be engineers, there might be UI work. And you need to kind of look at those a little bit separately and sort of evaluate each of those items of health. But the real crux of this thing is the questions in these sections where we fill in. So each team comes back. First one's on team collaboration. And what I'm trying to find out here is how well is the team working together? Are they communicating? Are they collaborating? Is there, is the direction understandable? Is the external team actioning and responding to the feedback in the right way? And are the teams starting to work as one and just be an extension of each other? That's what we're looking at here. Project management and production. The quality of the documentation, the creative documentation, the briefs, the technical briefs, are tasks being tracked, the schedules, just the nuts and bolts of running a project. So staffing, this is where we're looking at, do we have the right people on the project? And this is one of the keys, because it almost, on a long-term project, there's often times where you start off with the right people, and I see this a lot of on engineering projects. Maybe it's just not quite the right fit and we need a little bit of a different skill set. And so if you're asking about this and you're sort of looking at it constantly, it's way easier to make those changes and get the right person on the project. And it could be internal or external. Is the lead, are there problems with the lead's feedback or something like that, where you're just like, maybe this person just isn't suited for that. So this is where we're looking at the actual people on the project. And it's also where we talk about whether we're gonna ramp up or ramp down, any changes. Also, are we gonna extend this because we've got more to do, whatever it is. We kind of get in there. Project confidence is where we just make sure that everybody's kind of excited about what they're doing and that they feel like it's gonna be successful. There are times when you're halfway through a project and kind of everybody feels like, I don't even know if this is gonna make it into the game. So that's what we're trying to evaluate here. And then what I do is I send this out to both teams, they fill it out, I compile it, we run the meeting based on this, we talk about all of it, I document it, kind of call out all the high points, send it, put it on Confluence, save these out on shared folders, and broadcast that out to the product teams, which they're generally pretty interested in. The product owners, the game directors, there might be 10 to 20 different external engagements going across for that product at any given time, and they're pretty interested in what's going on and if their tracking is healthy. And then what I will send out to leadership is really more of a very high-level call out, but with the ability to dive down into anything. And then they've got the information they need, and as long as nothing's blowing up, they're generally pretty satisfied with that. So to summarize, these are what I believe to be the lasting pillars of healthy engagements. Have a deep understanding of the projects and the teams and the partners and the goals. If you're doing biz dev, it doesn't work just to get people going and step away and not really understand what you're trying to accomplish. Focus on honesty and transparency. Build a feeling of we're in this together. Define success and the steps to get there. Start small and scale up. Measure and maintain health. Strong documentation is always important. And with that, thank you for attending. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
Hey, Phil. We're well connected, so it makes things a little bit easier, but do you have advice for people in the room who are trying to do BD for their studios? You already mentioned that you get so many cold outreaches, etc. You mentioned something briefly, but could you expand maybe what could actually get people's foot in the door instead of this generic, like, hey, we provide amazing engineering, we provide amazing art, we would be great partners and really love your project. So
Yeah. There's the most important thing is, it's like, show me the money, show me your work, right? Like show what you've done, show the quality you have. Obviously, there's a desire to keep costs down and shop for lower cost options and everything, but most of the decisions are made on quality, right? And the quality of the work. And so I always say, like, if you've got really good quality and you're doing good work, that's going to trump even your experience, even the games you've worked on. And if I'm showing a VFX portfolio to my VFX lead, they're going to be able to tell. It doesn't matter what I think. If I'm showing, if an engineer lead is looking at the CVs of engineers that are going to be on a team, and that's like an interview. So the most important thing really is to show good work, highlight your best work. Don't try and sell stuff that you're maybe not confident in and just sort of gloss over it. Just show the best stuff, try and get your foot in the door working. You can build business from there.
Right, okay.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
So if I understood correctly, you are more focused on the strategic approach and having improvements as you go and seeing the success at the end of the line. But what would be some KPIs or measurements of success that you would refer to? Because at the end of the day, you would have to compare to something, have some year-over-year evaluation, see how the health and engagement are fluctuating, maybe.
Well, I mean, the most important metric is that the internal team wants to continue working with the partner, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to, the goals that were set out in the project were accomplished. What they created together was maybe beyond what they thought they'd get done or accomplish at a quality level or an innovation level. So to me, of course, that's the most important metric. I mean, I can go back and look at numbers and burn down rates and everything like that, but there's so many factors involved in what influences those numbers. Could be internal as much as it is external. So I just really focus on whether we accomplished what we wanted to, and the team enjoyed working with the team and they provided really good assistance. And it's really obvious when that's happening, and it's really obvious when it's not happening. So I know that's really squishy, but that's the way I've always approached it.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.